Hey everybody, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's having a good Tuesday morning here. So I wanted to make a video and get my notes here talking about NASCAR ratings, viewership, and maybe things that they can do better. So I did some independent research on my own because I feel like there is mainly people that report for NASCAR, that work in NASCAR, that use NASCAR as a platform to essentially have a business, meaning that there's people that have a high interest in NASCAR performing well because they pretty much, that's their job that pays them, right, to either report for them, a huge YouTube channel with a bunch of followers, this and that, which is fine, right? But I feel like we can't miss out on the truth just because they love a sport and they want us to think that it's alive and well. So there's been a lot of changes in the sport. We're not going to really go over those, but I'm going to give you some of the facts here. So when it comes to TV ratings, there's what's used, and it's used by everybody, called the Nielsen rating, or Nelson rating, however I guess you say it. I don't know the guy's name. So essentially, that's a rating scale, and it uses kind of like a point system, right? So if you look on the website or any other place on the internet, it'll all give you the same type of score. So they've got listed a 1.5 to 1.9 is risk of being canceled. A 2.0 to 2.9 is a pretty good show. It'll probably get the next season will get re-upped. 3.0 to 3.9, that's a show that's doing pretty darn good, like The Voice, maybe trying to think of some other ones, maybe like American Idol, something like that. It's doing really good. That's a show that's just going to keep going for a long time. Now, anything above 4.0 is like your mega shows of history, right? That's going to be like your Seinfelds, your Big Bang Theory, just a huge mega shows. Probably The Simpsons at one point in the 90s. Shows like that are like your big, your top dogs. So to give a little idea of kind of how the points work, let's say you have 115 million homes. You have and out of those 115 million homes, you have a 1.0 rating. So that means that there's 1.15 million people tuning in out of that. So you can kind of see how it breaks it down, but don't really get stuck on that part. That doesn't mean a whole lot, because that's a little more complicated. And if someone knows more about that, they can kind of clear that up for me. But anyway, so I went back and I started looking at the Daytona 500 ratings from basically like the mid 90s on up to the 2000s. Kind of like when I thought the peak of viewing was going on with NASCAR. So you can go on different websites and find this information. And it's all the same because it's all just from, the viewership. Whatever comes in is what gets plugged into the systems. So I already knew this, but I've been wanting to make a video on it. It's pretty astonishing, the numbers that we used to have back then for the Daytona 500s. Now, that is a Daytona 500, but in general, the viewing was up substantially. I don't have a percentage. I didn't make one up. I tried to think about one. But if I had to do a percentage, I would say that from the peak viewership to now, the viewing is down probably close to 80%, if I had to do the numbers. So I'm going to give you some. So basically, from the late 90s into the early 2000s, meaning from about 2010, 11, maybe a touch before that, there were some. The graph kind of goes like this in some places, but essentially the ratings were all between 9 and 12 points. 9 and 12 points. All right. So remember I told you 4.0 was like top dog? I mean, this was like explosions. I mean, they were massive points. Now, I don't ever think NASCAR will ever get back to those points it used to have. But if you look at some of the research that talks about the ratings of this weekend, so Indy was at a 2.7, which was 4.34 million viewers, and that was up 46% from last year. So first of all, a 2.97 is still only pretty good. Remember the chart I gave you that said 2.0 to 2.9 is pretty good, and 3.0 to 3.9 is very good pretty much, and 4.0 is like off the chart? They're still stuck into pretty good. Now the year before that, they were a 1.9 rating last year. You remember what I said 1.9 was? Risk of being canceled. Now this is a major sporting event, a marquee race, a big race. Now I personally think Indy races sometimes can be snooze fests or sometimes they can be great. A lot of it depends on your driver, it really does. But regardless, it's supposed to be one of the big races, right? People are like, oh, I won at Darlington, Indy, Bristol, Daytona, Charlotte, you know what I mean? It's a big one. So, Pocono, both Pocono races were 1.63. 1.63. Talladega, with all the Bubba Wallace hype and everything, was only a 2.2. Barely at pretty good. Barely over risk of being canceled. And these ratings were higher than last year overall because of the coronavirus, because of people staying home, because there's no other sporting events. So it blows my mind to hear people like say, oh man, you know, like the ratings are good and NASCAR is doing good. No, I don't even know how the fuck NASCAR is still on the air. I really don't. I have no clue. I mean, and then they've got the balls to compare these ratings to the last highest rating football game on the NFL. Newsflash, I think that shows no one watches NFL like they used to anymore either, because those ratings were right in the shithole ratings for the Pocono race and the Talladega race and the 1.63s and the 2.2s and everything else. So, I mean, they're comparing this to NFL ratings. Well, whoop-de-freaking-do, those ratings suck ass too. All you gotta do is research it. I mean, we're getting the wool pulled over our eyes, guys. I mean, come on. Like, so anyways, so now that you saw the facts and how that goes, I mean, there's no way to dispute it. And you gotta think, you just use common sense, right? So if they say 4.3 million viewers, well, think about it. You know how many millions and millions and millions of people are in America, and you get 4 point. I mean, yeah, that's pretty decent, but I mean, think about that. So when we're talking only 1 point something million people, that's nothing. I mean, when you're talking less than 2 million people in the whole United States watch something, that's horrible. I mean, think about that. You know what I'm saying? Kind of makes sense. So anyways, so going back to the Daytona 500 races, that was back when you were probably having like 9, 10 million people watch a race. That was back when you could go to a bar and the race would be on in the bars. Which, by the way, I live around Raleigh, North Carolina. I can tell it now, for the past 10, 15 years, you can't go into a bar and watch a NASCAR race. I would say 10 years. You just can't find races on TV like you used to in bars and stuff. So There's viewerships right there that don't happen anymore. You have to ask, hey, can you turn this on, please? NASCAR. Oh, there's NASCAR race on? Yes, there is. Oh, okay. So, anyways,